Welcome everybody to our next series of Adenta Academy vlogs. Today we're going to cover the aesthetic brackets and the different materials available on the market, including clinical advantages, disadvantages, and also including an overview of the entire market portfolio. So, first of all, we would like to start with a brief overview about the different aesthetic materials that are available on the market for brackets and their clinical properties. So, the different aesthetic materials on the market can be generally divided into two groups. Group number one are ceramics, and group number two, pretty simple, is others. So, the ceramics are being divided into two different materials. One is the monocrystalline bracket material, which is also very well known as the sapphire brackets, and the polycrystalline ceramics. On the other hand side, we have four other groups. We have the resin brackets, we have the plastic brackets, we have blanket brackets even made of glass, and we have polymers and combination of polymers called copolymers. So now I'm sure you're wondering why we have so many different options for the same purpose, delivering a more aesthetic treatment option to our patients. Well, first of all, when aesthetic materials came into the market, doctors were not really happy with it because the bonding strength was so high that the enamel was damaged when the brackets were debonded. You had problems with discolorations and so on. So the industry was really challenged to develop reliable materials that fulfill the promises that they were making. Right now we have on the left hand side, we have the ones that are the most commonly sold brackets and bracket materials, and especially the monocrystalline brackets. Just put in here sapphire, that everybody knows what I'm talking about. So the sapphire brackets. The main properties are they do not discolorate, they do not deform during the treatment, they are purely translucent, they are made of one material only, which is aluminum oxide, and they are nowadays relatively nicely to be debonded. These are the positive sides of it. However, they are pretty hard. And with hard, I mean really rigid. That means that if you touch the bracket, for example, with instruments and pliers, hooks break. And I'm sure everybody of you have seen cases where you have hooks broken off. The next thing is also that if you are debonding the brackets, they fracture, they splitter easily. Why? Because they're very, very rigid. So in order to overcome the disadvantages of the monocrystalline sapphire brackets, the polycrystalline ceramics were developed. You have to understand that these brackets are mainly CNC'd, and these brackets are mainly not metal injected but ceramic injected molding. Okay? So with the polyceramics you have a mixture of different materials resulting in a more softer material. Softer means also that it's easier to debond and that it does not break as easily as the pure rigid monocrystalline brackets. However, they're not really translucent. They always have a milky, slightly gray shade of the teeth. So when you put it on the teeth, they're not really showing the natural enamel. So it's not exactly what the doctors were looking for. And on top, doctors were asking for a different price. So now with the clear goal to develop a material that has a better price than the really more expensive ceramic materials compared to metal brackets, resin, plastic, even glass brackets came up because they were much cheaper to manufacture. However, all of them have only disadvantages. Although they are cheaper, which is like the only advantage of them, they discolor. During the treatment, the slot is being deformed, so you're losing absolutely any prescription and accuracy in it. And also with the polymers that were developed those days, they had more or less the same disadvantages of the other ones. They were a little bit better when it came to stability and discoloration, but at the end of the day, all of them discolorate, or glass, which does not discolorate, breaks so quickly and easily that you cannot really leave it into the mouth for many months. So now being left with the options on the market, also including the effect that ceramics tend to abrase the enamel when you have contact points. We at J-DentalHub thought about how can we combine those two different material elements and material sections into one material, and also to overcome one of the biggest disadvantages, which is high friction. Ceramic materials have a relatively soft surface, rough surface. So even if you really highly polish them, you are not able to maintain and create a smooth finishing surface in the slot. So when it comes to the first treatment phase, leveling alignment, you're always faced with high friction. If you then on top combine an aesthetic bracket with an aesthetic wire coated with Teflon or silicone, which has an even higher friction, so you increase the overall friction of the system, then you're really lost in the beginning of the treatment phase. So either you go for the stable translucent bracket with high friction fractures and the risk of enamel abrasion, or you go on the other side of the materials and go for no enamel abrasion but discoloration, deformation, and relatively, depends on the material, low friction. So we thought about combining only the two worlds and their advantages. So we came out with the so-called alpha ceramic, made by J-DentalHub. This alpha ceramic is a very, very state-of-the-art, not new anymore because we have been clinically working with it now for more than 5 years, material that combines the positive worlds of the pure ceramic brackets and the polymers. Polymers are in general being confused with plastic. And I do not need to talk in detail about plastic brackets. We all know them and we all know that they're not good. So nowadays, under the category polymers, you have thousands of different materials. So the alpha ceramic is a combination of the monocrystalline sapphire, the aluminum oxide, together with medical grade polymers that do not discolorate, that do not deform, but they offer an integral friction like a metal bracket. So when you look and see the combination of it, which comes here into effect with the Breeze SL bracket, the Discreet and the Discreet Plus series, you have a fully translucent bracket. You're able to get a low profile bracket, conventional, as well as on the self-ligating side. You have a low friction like a metal bracket. And the best thing is something that all of the doctors that were involved in the development process reported: you do not have enamel abrasion. So whenever you have contact points, may it be at the beginning of the treatment, during the treatment, if you have cross bites, and your patient has contact with enamel to our brackets, the enamel will not be damaged. And this is one of those things that why a lot of doctors refused to work with ceramic brackets, because regardless of which of the sides you're using, you are not able to eliminate this fact. And on top, the super low friction, so you have leveling and alignment, you're just speeding it up. When it comes to debonding, we also thought about how can we improve that one. And we have on the both brackets, we have a micro bubble retention that has mechanical locking base for the bonding. So you have a strong base and a strong bond during the entire treatment. But when it comes to the debonding phase, just make sure that you enter either with an old ligature cutter or any kind of regular standard ceramic debonding pliers. You just grab and go in between the bracket, not the bracket base, the bonding base. So this is how you're gonna detach the bracket from the enamel, and you don't have any issues with splittering, with fractures, or with spending a lot of time and taking your burr and just drilling down the residues of the ceramic brackets. This is the brief overview of the aesthetic materials we have available on the market. If you would like to follow up and have a checklist on all the different aspects of the different materials, please make sure to look them up in our flip chart book for aesthetic brackets.